Hello everyone.
Hi everybody.
Hey, welcome to our series that we've been doing on marriage, and we've titled it, We've Got
Marriage
Problems, but we really don't, at least not at the current time. And but everybody has marriage problems from time to time, every couple. And we've been doing this series over the last several weeks to try to help anyone who's been having marriage problems or whatever to solve those problems, resolve those problems, make their marriage good and strong. And if you're out there listening to this and you don't have marriage problems, it's always good to review, because again, we all all couples run into marriage problems here or there. And the key to it is this: all couples are going to have marriage problems, but it's the working through those problems successfully.
That's right.
That's important. And so but what we've been doing is we've been looking at marriage A to Z, and we've been going through the alphabet, and we've been taking words that start with A, B, C, and so on, and using those words to try to help people with their marriage, talk about marriages. And we're not getting all the words that we possibly could, because we couldn't think of them all, but I think we're doing a pretty good.
We've shared a lot of really good insights, a lot of good tips to have a healthy marriage.
Yes, and using this technique of just looking at some words and so forth from the alphabet, you get what I'm saying. So hey, if you've missed any of our previous sessions, we'd like to invite you to go back into our archives, and you can get anything that you've missed for free. So it's all available to you. And so marriage A to Z, we've gotten through all the way down right up to the letter L, and we're on L now, so we'll pick up there. Now there's a lot of words I would think that start with L that we could apply to marriage, but I can't think of a better word to use to apply to marriage than the word love. Can you?
No, I cannot.
Love. And so anyway, let's pick up with love.
Yeah, love is not just a romantic feeling. It's a decision that we make. It's something that we decide on purpose to do. Sometimes it can be a very hard decision, but this is true love, to decide to love someone.
Yes, and that it happens a lot of times when people meet. Initially, they think they're in love, and they have
romance.
The hormones are running,
romantic energy,
and romantic, and all of that. And there's nothing wrong with that, but a lot of times couples get married. They get married too quick a lot of times, too quickly. Say it that way. And because they're running on that romance and that hormones, and we always recommended that couples take at least 2 years to get to know one another,
to build a friendship,
to build a friendship and so forth before they get married. Because you don't want to just meet somebody and just go out with them a very brief period of time and think you're in love. And again, you've got the hormones running, and is romance and all of that. And anybody can put their best foot forward for a brief period of time. But, we recommend at least 2 years. I heard somebody say this, go out for at least 1 year minimum, because then you can see your future spouse if you wind up getting married in each of the seasons of the year, and because he might turn into a different person when football season starts, or she might turn into somebody different kind of a person when, I don't know,
some other season
starts. So, but so someone said a minimum of a year. We've always recommended 2 years, because in and that's not a hard and a fast rule, but a lot of times people think they're in love, Diane, and they're not.
Yeah,
and
a couple years gives people time to really think things through if they have the mind to do it.
Right, and I experienced this in my own life growing up with. There were 2 girls that I knew growing up that I would have considered marrying. Thank God I didn't. I got the best. But looking back at it, I wasn't in love with either one of them. But I thought I was in love.
Right.
And I was really more in love with the idea of being in love.
That can do it.
And that can do it. And a lot of people get married based on that. and they're in love with the idea of being in love. They found someone, and as we've said, the emotions are running high and hot, and they want to get married right away. And then they get married, and then they realize, after about 6 months, the honeymoon's worn off. And as we've been saying in this series, the things that the differences in each one, opposites attract. The differences that attracted them now, and they start repelling one another. And if you don't have love, real love, as we're going to talk about, is what holds a marriage together long term. So, we didn't have any of that in our notes, did we?
No.
But I believe the Holy Spirit's leading us and helping us to help people. Maybe there's some people out there that needed to hear that. So don't get married too quick. Be sure that you're really in love with somebody, and you have the love that we're going to talk about here before you get married, because that's the only real chance you have of having a long-lasting, fruitful marriage.
And that you're going to commit to love them even when those feelings aren't there.
Exactly. To love them even when the feelings aren't there, because the feelings aren't always there, are they?
No.
I mean, they're just not. And so, and I guess we could sum it up: don't get married on a feeling, just based on a feeling, of an oogly woogly feeling, right?
Right.
You know what oogly woogly means?
I do.
You know what I'm talking about. But anyway, so love. Let's talk about love. Now, in the Bible, the New Testament was written in Greek, and so in the Greek, in English, we have one word for love, and in the Greek language, there's 3 basic words for love, and one of the words means friendship. And I mean, I feel very strongly about this, that before man and a woman get married, they should really become best friends.
Yeah, have a very strong friendship.
They should really be best friends. And I've heard a lot of couples over the years, they'll be talking, and they'll say, well, the lady will say, well, Mary over here is my best friend. Or the guy will say, well, Bill over here is my best friend. But, and I get that. And I'm not saying that, I'm not coming against that. I mean, you have best friends and, but the point I'm trying to make is, the husband and the wife should be best friends.
Right.
You are my best friend, not somebody else.
Right.
And I get what people are saying when they say so-and-so is my best friend and it's not their spouse. I get it. But when you get right down to it, a lot of them, their spouse isn't their best friend.
Right.
They're just not.
And that's really sad.
And it's sad. So you have always been not only my wife, but my best friend.
And you have been mine.
And
it makes all the difference in the world.
It does, and I think that's helped keep our marriage strong, is that we are best friends.
Right.
So when somebody's talking about friendship, I say, well, my wife, Diane, is my best friend. So there's a word in Greek, love, for friendship. And then there's another word that means it has to do with sexual relations and passion and that sort of thing. And, every marriage should have that also. Absolutely, that's very important. But, as we were talking about just a moment ago before we got to this point, a lot of couples get married based on sex and sexual things. And while that's important, sex is I heard somebody say it this way: sex is God's wedding present to a man and a woman. Because marriage is between a man and a woman, as a husband, man and a woman. Let me say, marriage is supposed to be between a man and a woman. And the sex is God's wedding present to that man and a woman when they get married. That's God's present, is sex. And sex is a holy thing, it's a good thing, it's a wonderful thing. But there's too many marriages that the couples get married based on sex and this erotic type of feeling, and I tell you, that will not last.
Right.
That will if all, I've said this for years and it's true, if all you have in a marriage is sex, you got nothing, because that sexual relationship, it ought to be there. It's a good holy thing, but it won't hold a marriage together. Right. Absolutely will not do it. And over many years, as we've had people come into the office with marriage problems, I haven't had one of them yet come in and say, well, we're looking at getting a divorce because of the sex. It's not a sexual. It's these other things that cause
right.
problems in marriage. So what I'm trying to say is, sex is important. It really is, and it's a wonderful thing. But you should not ever get married based on that, because if that's all you have in a relationship, it's not going to hold it together.
That's right.
So so there's the friendship love in the Bible. One of the Greek words is friendship love, and then there's another sexual love. But the one that's going to hold your marriage together long term is it's the Greek word agape, and it means unconditional love. And there's no feelings involved in it, really at all. I mean, it's not based on feelings. It's based on a decision that you've made to love someone.
That's right.
And so that's the kind of love that a couple must have in their marriage if it's going to last long term and be fruitful, is unconditional love. And you told me many times that over the years that a woman wants to know that she's going to be loved unconditionally no matter what. Mm-hmm. And you know what, I can speak at least for the men. I think we want that too.
Absolutely, everybody needs that.
Right, that we're going to be loved by our spouse. We're going to be loved by our spouse if we goof up, make a mistake or whatever. Now I'm not talking about unfaithfulness and all. I'm just talking about if I goof something up, you're still going to love me.
That's right. I am.
Right. Aren't you?
Or if I goof up, you're still going to love me.
Yeah, if we make a mistake, or like, for example, a good example, here's the time I took the weed eater and I accidentally...
This is not good.
No, it wasn't a good day here at our house. But I was trying to clean up an area that had gotten, I thought it was looking shabby, but what was it that I cut?
Irises?
Your irises. I
cut them all down to the ground.
I mowed them down because I thought we were supposed to do that. And I know we've cut those down before.
Not to the ground.
But not to the ground. All right. So isn't there a certain height you want to cut them down? And
about 6 to 8 inches.
And not with a weed eater.
Yeah,
we
kind of destroyed the whole thing.
Right, we use something like a scissors or a hedge trimmer or something, but not the weed eater.
It was a day of mourning.
It was a day. And they're very beautiful. And I didn't mean any harm. I just goofed up. And now you were not a happy camper that day.
I was really sad.
and you were some other things too. You were angry, but you did not come up there and yell and scream and chew on me and go on and call me. You didn't do that. You've never done that. You've always been very good in that area, and I appreciate it. You never did those sorts of things, but you were angry. You were not happy. But did you still love me?
I still loved you.
and that has to do with this unconditional love. And actually, in the Bible, if you have your Bibles there, go to 1 Corinthians, the 13th chapter. 1 Corinthians, the 13th chapter. We're going to be reading some verses out of the Amplified Classic Version. And these verses, there's 1, 2, 3, there's 4 verses that the Bible talks about how this agape, that's the Greek word, love, unconditional love, how it operates, how it acts, how it functions. And it'd do good if a couple, and we've told many couples this over the years, if you're having trouble, in your marriage, go read these verses and do them, and it'll solve.
It can change everything.
Absolutely. So let's just take a little time here, and we'll read through these and comment on them as we go, and see what happens. So 1 Corinthians 13, verse 4, Amplified Classic. Why don't you start reading?
The first one, verse 4, says, "Love endures long and is patient and kind. Love never is envious, nor boils over with jealousy. It is not boastful or vainglorious, does not display itself haughtily."
Do you have any comments on that?
Well, it pretty well speaks for itself. It says love endures long. It means it's not a passing thing. It's not a passing phase. It's not a phase we go through. It means it doesn't last for 5 years and then we're done with it. It lasts long. It endures forever. It says it's patient. We've talked to, we haven't gotten to the P's yet, but patient. You have to be patient with your spouse. Mm-hmm. You want them to be patient with you. You need to be patient with your spouse. And the things that you want them to do, the changes you want them to make, you have to have patience.
Yes.
And kindness. It's so important to be kind. If if there's any one person on the face of the earth that you need to be kind to, it is your spouse.
Yes.
And if you're kind to your spouse, it will have rich rewards because it will cause kindness to well up in them. The kindness will be returned to you.
You know, I've seen couples be kind to everybody else except to their spouse. That's not good.
No, that is very discouraging for the other person. Love is never envious. It means that we're not envious, and it also says boils over with jealousy. We can't be full of envy and jealousy and have a healthy relationship, healthy marriage.
And we talked about jealousy under Jay, so if you missed that, go back in the archives. So we don't need to go over all that again because we spent quite a bit of time talking about jealousy and not being jealous.
Yes. It's not boastful or vainglorious. It means that we don't think more of ourselves in our relationship than we should. We don't think that we're better than our spouse. We've come across a lot of people who they really honestly in their heart of hearts think that they are better than their spouse in basically every way possible, spiritually, that they're a better person, that they're smarter, and that will not give you a healthy marriage if you think you're better than your spouse. If you have something in your spouse that you maybe think that you're better in, start thinking about things that they're better in, because I guarantee you that they are better in some things than you are.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, should we move to verse 5? Now, verse 5 may well be the most, the verse that you might want to put the most emphasis on. And let me read this. Love, talking about this unconditional love, it is not conceited, arrogant, and inflated with pride. Now, it is not rude, unmannerly, and does not act unbecomingly. So we ought to not be rude to one another.
That's right.
And that's sad when we've seen a lot. Now we've seen a lot of good marriages over the years. So I don't want to accentuate negative. You know, we've seen so many good, wonderful marriages, absolutely. But you know, we've seen some that aren't. And one of the characteristics that we've seen in marriages that aren't is rudeness. Just one spouse just being rude to the other. And they'll be nice to other people,
right?
But they'll come to church and be nice to everybody at church. Again, anybody can put their best foot forward for an hour and a half at church,
right?
But then they'll go home and just be so rude to their spouse. So if you're acting the way you should and walking in the Bible says we're supposed to walk in love as Christians, you're not going to be rude.
Or sharp, or brief with them, or I don't know what the right word is to say, but be nice.
Be nice.
Be nice.
Yeah, gruff. You're not going to be gruff.
Yeah, gruff.
So it's not rude, unmannerly, unmannerly. You know, when we were after we got married, I didn't act like this before we got married, but after we got married, you and I were out somewhere at a restaurant and we were eating ribs, R-I-B-S, ribs.
Uh-oh.
and I got a little excited about the barbecue sauce.
He likes a lot.
Yeah, and
more barbecue sauce probably than anybody you've ever met.
And I'm eating those ribs, and I wouldn't have done this when we were dating, but I wasn't thinking about it, and I guess the honeymoon had worn off, and I was over there, I was getting real happy with these ribs, and I looked up at you, and you had this ghastly look on your face, like, you know, like you just like you didn't want to say anything, but you know it was
more than I could bear.
It was more than you could take. It was an awesome. It was a bad sight, and so
it would have been a good commercial for the restaurant.
Commercial for the restaurant. I was having me some fun with those ribs. Anyway, but so I've had to learn, and I haven't completely reformed totally, but I do better. I try to do better, and but you know that's. You know, it's a funny thing, but that's being rude. You don't want to sit there and be grossed out every time you look up at me because I got barbecue sauce slopping all over the place. You know, you're gonna lose your appetite. So that's kind of a funny example, but we don't want to be rude. So let's move on here. It's not rude, unmannerly, does not act unbecomingly, God's love in us. Now here's one. Does not insist on its own rights or its own way. Now there right there, that'll solve a whole lot of marriage problems, right? I mean, that'll solve maybe 75% of the marriage problems that we've seen
heard the
right
saying,
there.
it's my way or the highway.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't work in marriages.
No.
That's it. That to feel that way, it's got to be my way. Is like a suicide mission for your marriage.
There's got to be healthy biblical compromise in any relationship, and especially in a marriage, because I'm not ever going to get everything I want my way all the time, or your way, because it's going to cause problems. So we've learned how to compromise and give and take. Nothing sinful or anything like that, but like watching the television. That's why we got more than one television in the house. You can watch what you want on one, I'll go watch what I want on the other. But when we just had the one TV or whatever, if we're just going to watch one TV, sometimes you'll watch what I want to watch, and then there's times I'll watch what you want to watch, and you got me hooked on One Calls the Heart, and I guess I've got you hooked a little bit on golf. I probably got more hooked on One Calls the Heart than you got hooked on golf. I wanted to see that one season who that woman was going to pick, which of those two guys, and I guessed it right too, didn't I? But you got to compromise on what TV shows you're going to watch, or
what restaurant you're going to go to.
Yeah, or
how you're going to decorate your house.
Right, or these sorts of things, and a lot of and those are some less serious things, but even more serious things. And couples, we've seen so many of them that the one spouse says it's going to be my way or the highway. And that's just not healthy.
Well, it's showing that you don't value the other person.
That's right. And then we've also seen where like the husband sometimes will be more passive and the woman more non-passive, or vice versa. And one of them will just rule the roost and just run everything. And that's not, those marriages are never all that they could be or should be. So we shouldn't insist. What does the Bible say? Love does not insist on its own rights or its own way.
Yes.
We could talk forever on that, but I think we made the point.
Right.
And then love is not self-seeking, is not touchy, fretful, or resentful. Touchy.
Touchy.
Oh my goodness.
We can all be touchy.
Touchy.
We all be touchy.
That would solve a whole lot of marriage problems, because one of the what is it, spouse? What is it, spice? The singular for spouse, spice? I don't know. But one of the marriage partners is touchy. Touchy. Just the littlest thing sets them off. And this is something I've had to work on over the years. I've always been more touchy than you. I've been touchy, and we've even gotten down to the point where it wasn't what you said, but the way you said it. And then we got past that, but it was the look you had on your face. Touchy, and really I was acting like a little immature little baby. And that's really, I think, if you take touchy all the way back down and wheedle away what's at the root of it, it's you're acting like a baby a lot of times.
Yes, and women can be touchy at certain times of the month, or we can be touchy, get really touchy if we're overstressed or overtired or things like that. And we need to take a step back sometimes if we're starting to act touchy with the other person. And
like I said, I've had a problem in this area, but I think am I not better now?
You're tons better.
I'm tons better, but I had to work on it, and to not let every little thing you say or inflection of your voice or whatever make me upset or angry, because you don't mean nothing by it, and it's not what you said, it's what I interpreted, but touchy, and we must not be touchy. If we're walking in the love of God, we're not going to be touchy. Okay? And it says, love of God is not touchy or fretful or resentful. It takes here's another one. It takes no account of the evil done to it. It pays no attention to a suffered wrong. Takes no account of the evil done to it. Pays no attention to a suffered wrong. Now that means somebody's been wronged. They have been wronged, and they pay no attention to it.
Right. They don't store up those hurts in a bank inside of their heart. It's real easy when somebody offends you, your spouse offends you, to just store all that of hurt and offense up, and it causes you to be more resentful and more guarded toward your spouse and closed off to your spouse. But if you walk in the love of Christ, this love that we're talking about, you're not going to take those suffered wrongs and store them in your heart. And all this is talking about is all these scriptures that we're reading are talking about being like Jesus.
Yes.
Jesus acted this way. He was wronged in every way possible, but he took no account of it. He didn't store it in his heart, and he gave completely and totally of himself.
When he's hanging on the cross, it takes this kind of love to say, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. I mean, so yes, he acted that way, and he is love. He's love in the flesh. But again, it's hard to not pay attention to a suffered wrong.
It's very hard.
That's easier said than done. But the Bible says we must do it, and if the Bible tells us to do it, we're capable of it by the help of the Lord, help of the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
Yeah, and so but that is something right there. Is just to repeat it is important. You've suffered a wrong by your spouse. Love pays no attention to it.
Yes.
Pays no attention to it. And we could go on and on, but that would solve a lot of problems. Pays no attention to a suffered wrong.
And verse 6, it says, it does not rejoice at injustice and unrighteousness, but rejoices when right and truth prevail. Then verse 7, love bears up under anything and everything that comes, is ever ready to believe the best of every person. Its hopes are fadeless under all circumstances, and it endures everything without weakening.
So in there, I think the one thing that jumps out at me, it's ever ready to believe the best of every person.
Yes.
Now, I've watched you do this. You've always believed the best about me. And that's really blessed me over the years. You've always believed the best when you probably shouldn't have been, but you did it anyway. And this is something you do on purpose.
Yes.
What we're talking about here doesn't have to do with feelings, whether you feel like it or not. It's unconditional. So you're going to do it whether you feel like it or not.
Right.
And I'm going to do it whether I feel like it or not. We're supposed to. And so, you've always believed the best of me, and I appreciate that. And that's what God, he always believes the best of us.
Yes.
Even when we're not acting right.
You've always believed the best in me, and it makes you a better person when you know that your spouse believes the best of you. It just raises in your own self-esteem and your feelings about yourself. It just raises you to a higher level if you have a spouse that loves you that much, that believes the best of you all the time.
And walking in love towards one another, walking in the love of God, we've been able to endure everything that's come along in our life. We've been able to endure it, and we've had a lot of good things happen to us, and we've had some things that aren't good that's happened to us, and this love has got us through those tough times.
Yeah, and I've read many places that when couples go through really serious problems, like difficulties in their life, not between them, but like a house fire or a death in the family or something like that, a lot of times that can cause that couple to become distant and separated, and even to the point of divorce.
The loss of a child.
But when you're walking in the love of God, those things need to draw you closer. You need to find strength from each other and comfort from each other, not grow separate from each other.
Absolutely. And verse 8 really says why love is so important, because it says love, this God kind of love, it never what? It never
fails.
It never fails.
Never fails.
It never fails. That's why if couples would walk in love, their marriages wouldn't fail.
Right.
Their marriages wouldn't fail if couples would just walk in love. And remember, you can't change your spouse. No. You can only change yourself. And you can pray for your spouse and all of these things, wonderful, but you can't ultimately change them, but you can change yourself. And so if you're having marriage problems out there, you start walking in love, start doing these things.
Yes.
And the Bible says love will never fail.
Yes.
So.
Okay, the next one, we're done with the L's, and now we're going to go on to the L's.
We're only doing one word that starts with L. But that's okay.
Well, we did some L's last week, I think.
I don't know, but how can you beat love?
That's right.
Love is the best word that starts with L.
Yep.
So then we'll just I think we did enough with L. Let's talk about one more letter today, and then our time will be gone. Let's do this next one, M.
The next one is money management.
Oh,
of all
money
the things,
management.
well, besides love, of all the things that we could talk about, money management causes the biggest problems in marriage. It really causes bad problems, and it's gotten to the point that if we marry anybody, anybody that we marry in the future, we're going to insist that they get a credit report on each other, because people lie about their finances. People a lot of times are in great financial trouble and they don't tell the person they're going to get married to. And we've seen that in probably 3 different marriages that, 4 marriages, it played a part, that the person wasn't truthful about their financial state before they got married, and when they got married it was like the other spouse was in shock and didn't understand why the person lied to them, and then the person that got married to this person with bad finances, then it became their responsibility also, and it's just not a good thing. So this is a really, 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 really important part of marriage.
It is. And when we were entering the pastorate, going to be pastoring a church, I knew we'd be counseling couples as it pertains to their marriage. And I thought way back, many years back, decades back, I was much younger, and I thought that the major thing that couples were going to come in having problems with was in their sexual life. That never came up one time, and we counseled so many couples. That never came up not one single time. But the thing that came up the most, and it's not even close, at the top of the list was money management. Right. And it wasn't even that they didn't have enough money in their, that they were making enough. They were making enough, the husband and the wife together, but it was the management of it.
Right.
It was, I should say, the mismanagement or the lack of management of it. And that really was a major, major problem in so many couples that came in that were having marriage problems.
Right.
And were you going to say something?
You can finish.
Or were you going to move on? Because I want to say something before we get in.
Okay.
We could do a whole series on money management.
Yes.
We could do a whole series on it and spend weeks on it, but we don't feel led to do that. But I can really sum up. I can really sum up money management. Then we're going to say a few more things about it, but I could really sum up weeks and weeks and weeks of study with this next statement I'm going to make. And it goes back to there's a newscaster here that does a weekly investigative reporting here in St. Louis on one of the local channels, and he titles it "You Paid for It," and he looks at governmental misspending and things like that, and how tax money is not spent properly or whatnot. And so he was doing this one story on this certain city or town here in the municipality of St. Louis, and he went in to talk to them. Talk to the mayor, and the city was on the verge of bankruptcy, and he asked the mayor. He said to her, "Mayor," he said, how would you sum all this up? Why are you having so much trouble here in the city and you're about to go bankrupt? And she said, "Well, Elliot," oh, his name's Elliot Davis. He's a newscaster here. She said, "Well, Elliot, it comes right down to this. We've had more going out than what's coming in." And then the camera switches back to him in the studio, and he says, "That'll do it." And so you can have all the spreadsheets and all the budgets and this and that, and that's necessary. And if we're going to talk on budgeting, most couples don't have a budget. They don't even have a budget. Most couples don't have a budget. They don't. But we can sum it all up in that right there. If you've got more going out than what's coming in, you're in trouble.
Right.
You're in trouble.
And we found with most people, their income isn't the problem.
No.
It's how much they decide to spend, that they adopt a lifestyle that is higher than what their paycheck will accommodate.
I've seen big movie stars and singers that they ought to have multiplied tens of millions and even $1 billion, some of them. That one guy I'm thinking of, I thought he was a billionaire, and he basically dies bankrupt. And And why is it? Because so it doesn't matter how much you can make tens of millions of dollars a year, but if you spend more than that, you're still in trouble.
Right.
And so, but spending has been is a major problem, particularly when you got one of the marriage partners wants to, be mindful of money issues, and the other one is a spender. That's really difficult. That's really, really hard. So money management. So go ahead.
When you get married, it's really important to join your finances together. When you get married, it's a covenant relationship. Everything that he has is mine, and everything that I have is his. The good, the bad, and the ugly, and that's a covenant. God calls that a covenant. That's how covenants are set up. And also in our state, when you get married, everything that your spouse has is yours, and everything that you have is your spouse's. All your assets and all your liabilities.
So you mean it's not everything that's mine is mine and everything that's yours is mine? It doesn't work that way? No.
But what people do in marriage a lot of times is even though they're married, they keep her money and his money. And they, well, I'll pay for the house and you pay for the electric, and you pay for this and I'll pay for that. And they separate themselves financially when they're supposed to be together in a covenant. And it just never works out. It never works out very
I've
good.
never seen one marriage
I
yet.
saw one.
You saw one that worked?
That they worked together good with that.
I haven't seen one yet where the marriage was all it could be when their finances are separate because of the covenant. But he'll make money, she'll have a job and make money, and the way they operate, this is my money. He'll say this is my money, and that's her money, and she does spend her money the way she wants. I spend my money the way I want, and they're never together on that. And they'll have some sort of an agreement where certain money will go into a fund where they'll pay their bills or house payment or whatever. But it's pretty much his money and her money, and it's a covenant. And like you said, we have to be one in everything, and unity in everything. And I have never seen one yet, and that's been all that marriage has been all that it could be or should be. When the money's separated, it needs to be one. We've always done that since we got married. We've always had our finances one together, and what's yours is mine, what's mine is yours, and it's worked well.
Right. And that question comes up.
Oh, can I say this? Now, it's okay if one of the couple, like I've always handled the finances, okay?
Yes.
Ever since we got married, there's certain things you did, certain things I did, and just kind of happened. I've always overseen the finances. But I always show you the books, and you look at them regularly, a couple times a year, and I'll go over everything with you. And that's worked well.
Right.
All right, go ahead. What were you going to say?
The question comes up a lot of times, what happens on second marriages or third marriages or whatever, because half the people in the United States get divorced, and a lot of those get remarried, and they take along with them assets from their first marriage, and maybe both people have kids, and maybe they have retirement plans that they, half of it goes to the former spouse, and all kinds of things factor into those kind of things. And so those are decisions that really have to be made with the husband and wife together, and a lot of times a lawyer needs to be involved in it, unfortunately, and it can become very complicated.
You're talking about like on a second marriage or a third marriage where he's already, he's been working for years, or she's been working for years. They've got children from previous spouses and whatnot. So you're saying that like on a second marriage or third marriage, there ought to be communication in those situations, and sometimes even you said have a lawyer involved.
Have a lawyer
to
involved,
have it all discussed ahead of time. To keep from fights later. That makes a lot of sense.
To work together. And it's really important. It's so important that when you're married, you make decisions together and think things through, like are we going to go on a $10,000 vacation, or are we going to put $10,000 toward our mortgage? Usually, like Pastor Terry said, there's one person that is more frugal and one person that enjoys spending money more. And what I think the best solution is in that situation is come to the middle on that. Maybe save some and maybe spend some. Come to the middle, have an agreement in the middle, and then both people will feel like they've been heard, and both people will feel like they, can have a part of it and do what they, what they enjoy
Yeah,
doing.
I mean, I believe in saving money. And again, you need to have a budget out there. Everybody needs to have a budget, and you need to abide by it. But be that as it may, I've seen, I'm thinking of some people now where they've saved everything.
Mm-hmm.
Other people, they've spent pretty much everything. And you're right, there needs to be a balance. And you know, like on saving everything, that's important to save, but you want to enjoy life too.
Right.
I mean, do you want to save all that money up to buy walkers and wheelchairs? I mean, you know, I'm not believing that we're going to be in a walker or wheelchair when we get old. It's trying to be funny there. But, you know, you want to enjoy life as you go. But you can you can save too much, you can spend too much.
Right.
There needs
A lot
to be
of
a
times
balance.
people end up at 65 years old and they still owe 100% on their house.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
a really bad thing. Another thing that's really important in a marriage with money is to be honest. To be honest, I worked with a lady I suppose her husband was more of a saver and more frugal, or at least managed the money, and she was more of a spender. And so she would go out and she would go to like a designer store like Saks Fifth Avenue or whatever, and she would buy a whole outfit. She'd buy a hat, a purse, the outfit, the shoes that went with it, jewelry that went with it. And because she knew her husband wouldn't agree with it, I don't know exactly how it all worked, but she'd keep it all in her trunk. And so like one week she'd take out one item and show him what she bought, but she wouldn't tell him about all the other things. And then, a few weeks later, she'd take out the next one. And so she wasn't being honest. And in doing that, she was violating the trust of her husband.
Yes, you told that story in a previous session.
Oh,
And
sorry.
That's all right. And you still haven't told me who did that, but none of my business. But
It was a lady at work.
oh, lady at work. Okay, so it wasn't at church.
No.
So any former church members don't have to be wondering who it was. So the lady at work. But yeah, she shouldn't have been doing that. I want to say this, that on the budgeting and finances, I've always counseled people to be sure you have your home paid off by the time you retire.
Yes.
If not sooner than that.
Right.
And we've seen so many couples that they'd retire, and like you had just said, but it needs to be repeated, they don't have their home paid off.
Right.
And they owe a lot of money on their house.
They're in trouble.
And they're in trouble, and by the time retirement comes, they retire from their job, and then they have to go out and get 2 or 3 other part-time jobs just to exist.
Pay their bills.
Well,
and they don't feel good. Their body isn't the same. They're tired. They ache, but they have to go to work.
Right, and when they should be, retiring and enjoying their life and not having to work like they did when they were younger, now they have to keep doing it. And now there's exceptions. There's problems that happen in people's lives that's beyond their control, and they had to spend maybe a lot of their money on certain things, a surgery or what. So I'm not talking about that. But if you have a couple that they're get in their early 60s and they haven't paid their home off and they still owe a lot of money and they owe a lot of this kind of thing, it tells me they haven't managed their money properly over the years.
Right.
I mean, that's a pretty good rule of thumb. There's exceptions to that, but pretty much that's the case. And we've seen a whole lot of people, they're not financially able to retire when they get in their early 60s, and it's very, very sad.
Yeah.
Very sad. You got to manage money properly. So, we could talk for hours on this, but I think we're just kind of hitting some of the high points. And this stuff here, we talked about it last week, so let's move on.
So the next thing we're going to talk about under M is manage your expectations.
Yes.
We grew up as little girls to think about Prince Charming, and little boys, I don't know who they grew up thinking about, Barbie or whatever, that's the thing now, Barbie. We think that a spouse should be a certain thing. We knew a family one time that they believed that when their daughters got married, that the man had to have a house paid off, have his car paid off, and he also had to have an extra car for her that was paid off, had to have his education paid off, had to have his house totally furnished. By the time he was, I guess, 23 years old or 25 years old, and those expectations were unreasonable and unreachable. I told the one lady the one time, I said, "You're looking for somebody who's about 50 years old."
For her daughter?
For her daughter.
Yeah.
But anyway, a lot of times we have things in our mind that we expect that our spouse would be, and there's nobody that's going to be able to live up to all of our expectations. And sometimes we think, if a woman had a really good father, They'll think that their husband should be just like their father, but he's not.
No.
He's a totally different person. Maybe your father was really good at cars, but not good at carpentry, but maybe the man you married is really good at carpentry and not good at cars, and you don't understand why you can't figure that car out. We can't expect our spouse to be like this perfect thing that we've dreamed up in our head.
Right, and I know who you're talking about there, and there's nothing wrong with having, wanting your daughter to marry someone that's going to be able to support her, and that's good. That's all good. You want the guy she's marrying to have be gainfully employed and have and have a plan for his life and all. So that was the good part of it. But yeah, that lady wanted basically her daughters to be marrying the Prince, what's his name, Prince Harry or somebody like that, who's a multi-billionaire, and that's just, you're not going to find that, and a very unreasonable expectation. So it's good
and
that you brought that up.
if you're expecting your spouse to be something that's really unattainable or unreasonable or just not them, you're always going to be disappointed. So it's really important to manage your expectations.
Manage those expectations. Like for example, now you're a great cook. Now my mother was a fantastic cook, and you're a great cook. Absolutely fantastic. So I've had that advantage growing up, but there's sometimes men get married and their mother was a great cook and she did the cooking, or their dad was a great cook. Let's
keep it equal.
Keep it equal. But then their wife isn't a good cook, and that can cause a problem. So you have to give your wife time to learn how to cook.
Yeah,
or the husband, if the husband's a cook.
Last thing you need to do is if your wife said, well, my dad did it this, well, what my dad did, or my dad did, or my mom did, or my mom did, that's not going to go too far.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Well, one thing I did want to, I think we're done for the day, except for one thing I did want to say this back on the money. We said it last week, but I do think it bears repetition, to have limits on your spending. In other words, like have a set amount where, like for example, I guess what would our set amount be that we wouldn't go out and spend over that amount unless we talk to one another? If you had to guess.
I would say $50.
$50, $100, somewhere in there. So I think every couple, and it'd be different, it would be different for every couple, but I think every couple ought to sit down and talk about, okay, how much can I go out here today and spend without that it's not going to cause a problem.
Right, and it's just a courtesy.
Right.
Like if I see a book or something that I'd like to get, I just say, hey, I'm looking at this book. It costs, $20. Is that, do you have a problem with that?
No.
And he'll say no, and because because we have it in our budget, we have the ability to do that right now. Yeah. And so, or if he says, I need to go out and buy some golf balls, I mean, he doesn't have to ask me, or I don't have to ask him, but we do that out of courtesy.
Right. But I think, absolutely, but I think every couple, because remember I told that story last week about that lady who went to an evangelistic service, and there was an unscrupulous minister, and she had put in a $10,000 check without asking her, talking to her husband, and he's about to have a heart attack. That's what we're talking about.
Right.
I mean, that kind of thing. You wouldn't go out and spend $5,000 without telling me, or $500 without telling me, and talking, or I wouldn't do that to you. So in money management, I think every couple ought to have communicate and talk about what's your number? If I go over that, what would really bother you?
And we can't, what did it say up here? We can't be touchy if our spouse disagrees with something. Like if I say, honey, I'd like to get this book, and if he said, well, you just got 3 books, have you read them? Or he wouldn't say that in a bad way, or he just asked me out of curiosity. I can't get touchy. Or the best response I could have is, no, I haven't read those books. Maybe I should read them before I buy another one.
And you do that to me too.
Yes.
We have done that over the years, and we've always worked through that. So, but it is important. It just it goes back to that the C. Under the C's, we talked about communication.
Yes.
Just have that communication, but have it in your money, and that will be very helpful.
Yes.
And again, we could spend hours on talking about money management, but we just want to kind of keep it surface level here. So I trust this has helped you today.
Yes.
I think we'll stop here and pick up with the N's next week. And the first letter for N is nice. We just want to be
Nice.
nice. So we'll pick up there next week. Hey, if you're out there and you don't know Jesus as your Savior, it's important that you receive Him. Hey, all of us are going to die one of these days. And you're going to go one of two places. Your spirit. Your body will be buried or cremated or whatever, but your spirit lives on. And you're either going to go to heaven or you're going to go to hell. And hell is a terrible place. And God doesn't want anybody to go there. That's why He sent Jesus down here to earth, born of a virgin, and He died on the cross and was buried and raised from the dead so that you don't have to go to hell. You can go to heaven when you die. And all you have to do is with a repentant heart, receive Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior. The Bible says whoever calls on the name of the Lord Jesus will be saved. So do that. I plead with you, I beg you, receive Jesus as your Savior and serve Him the rest of your life. You'll miss hell one day. You'll make heaven. He'll make your life worth living in the meantime, and He can also take marriages that are on the rocks and turn them around and make them fruitful and productive.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
hey, cry out to Jesus. He's there to help you. And other than that, hey, we'll see you right back here next week. God bless you. Thanks. Hey, you look so pretty.
And you look very handsome.
I appreciate you helping me with this. You're really doing a great job.
Thank you. So are you.
All right, well, thanks. We'll see you next week. All right, God bless you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.